let's get right to what I believe is the heart of the fear of failure in today's episode.
Welcome to Risk and Rise, the podcast where we explore the journey of overcoming the fear of failure, embracing risk, and achieving success in entrepreneurship, creativity, and personal growth. I'm your host, Telana Simpson, and I'm thrilled to embark on this journey with you. Together we'll discover the strategies, insights, and shifts in our thinking and attitudes that are needed to turn setbacks into stepping stones and transform fear into fuel for success. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's episode of Risk and Rise.
One of the ideas that I want to share through this podcast with you is an idea that many people are starting to say more and more about. And it's something that I've noticed is one of the biggest underpinnings across all the range of people I've worked with and I've studied and I've read about and learned from. The biggest underpinning to us fearing failure is actually how we have constructed our sense of self-worth. And I know this is deep and some of you are going to probably roll your eyes at me, but please hear me out and listen to Risk and Rise over the next weeks and months to come. And you will start to hear this pattern, this theme coming out, and how so many people who have embraced failure in the way that we're talking about here so that we can take risks and rise up, the way that they have constructed their sense of worth, or that they recommend people do, they use different words, but it all comes down to the same kind of message. It's literally the way we have constructed, and it's my word, my explanation of it, the way we have constructed our sense of worth as a human being. We touched on it actually in the previous episode with Donna Rachelson, so I just want to let her share with you an excerpt from that, just in her words of how she explains this distinction that I can then unpack with you a bit in today's exploration.
I think also from an individual perspective, the problem with failure is because we internalize it so much, it becomes part of our belief system about ourselves. So we may have had an experience in our early journey on entrepreneurship where we didn't shoot the lights out the first time and we did have a failure, but then we tend to internalize it that kind of says, I'm not good enough. And then what the problem is, even though you start trying different things, you still have that little voice chirping in your ear, sitting on your shoulder that says, I'm not good enough. So I think there's a whole lot of issues around having a growth mindset and also challenging some of your limiting beliefs that might actually be keeping you in a certain place based on experiences, even from childhood, from your upbringing, from culture, that are really impacting your journey as an entrepreneur.
Thanks, Donna, again for putting it in those words, because it does come down to this feeling of feeling not good enough, especially when you've done something wrong or you failed at something. It's almost like we then prove to the world that we are not good enough. And therefore, that is one of our fears. One of our deepest insecurities is that through what we do, we are going to expose that we are actually not enough. We are not good enough or worthy enough of being loved or accepted, or we don't have a place in this world, in this community that we're in. And therefore, the fear truck is a very deep undercurrent, and it translates into us holding back, translates into us not taking the risk, translates into not starting the business, or starting it so tentatively, or only when everything is exactly perfect, which is impossible, by the way. But often people procrastinate. They put off till tomorrow. They're like, I'm just not ready yet. Just another more month of saving or preparing or whatever it is that they think they need to have in place before they would be ready. Because what's actually underlying that and driving it, and often it's so deeply unconscious, is this fear that this endeavor, this attempt at creating a business, even though there's a huge part of me that wants to do it, that believes it's possible, that knows it could work, there's another part of me that is like so absolutely petrified of exposing the vulnerability of not being enough, because it's come from, as Donna said, our conditioning. Now, my question is, what is it in South Africa and in the way we brought up and our culture and the way we engage with each other, and that leads us to create this fear so profoundly, especially when it comes to business, to creating work. So from the way we brought up, the school we go to, our religion, the culture we're in, the geography, whether you live in a rural area or a city, and which city in the world you're living in, the country you're living in, the language you speak, your belief systems around spirituality and religion, the economy of the world, of your family, what you learn about money, the media, the books you read, the movies you watch, everything we fed through the media. All of those things contribute to what's called our conditioning. Now, no one can have the same upbringing as anyone else. We have similarities because we all, different ages are experiencing similar things that are happening in the environments around us. Yet our interpretation and how we internalize it will be unique to each of us. Saying that, there's this common thread that we internalize and have been brought up, and we are so conditioned, I think, by the media and by advertising in this consumerist kind of fast-paced world. We internalize that to be good enough, you have to have and you have to do. So we have started to link our sense of worthiness to achieving some kind of doing in the world. So the doing could be a successful business, driving a certain car, having a certain job, certain qualifications, degrees, education, all of those kind of things, those certificates, those external, the way we look, the size of our body, all these things, the clothes we wear become these, I call them, they fit under the category of doing, of an expression, become what defines us. And yet it's a very outside-in approach to defining your sense of worth as a person, as well as it's very temperamental. It will always be something that drives you to prove that you're good enough by having the best car, the best job, and doing okay. Not because if you do the opposite, if you don't drive the fancy car, or you make a mistake, and I'm using simple examples sometimes, but if you make a mistake, you fail. You have just proved to yourself and everyone else that you are not good enough. You are not enough. This is what drives so much around our fear of failure. Is so yeah, what we need to start doing now is delinking our sense of worth as a being to our sense of doing. If we can make that distinction between our being and our doing, and that's the most simplest way I can break up this distinction. It's around separating our confidence from our esteem or our sense of worthiness. So literally my message for today is just to start this conversation around understanding that the root, the foundation to us having risk fitness is literally going to be the way we have constructed in our mental and emotional landscape, with the way we have constructed our sense of worth. Is it conditional on what we do, or is it unconditional? And by unconditional, it's to acknowledge that we are a human being worthy of so much, but we need to develop the capacities, the skills, the abilities to express our value in what we do, versus doing things to become valuable. So now I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg with this concept. But I just thought to follow on from Donna Rachelson's episode, And just to share what I believe is one of the core foundational things behind our fear of failure is our sense of feeling not enough versus enough. And if we can start to learn to construct, literally in the way we engage with ourselves and think about ourselves, and separate our being from our doing, and construct our worth in an unconditional way, which means acknowledging that we are human beings, that we have some kind of value, that our doing does not make us human. It's like the other way around. We are human, so let's do our best doing, if that makes sense. That is the difference that makes all the difference, because when you can separate then your doing from your worthiness, right, and see your doing as an expression of yourself, then when you fail at a doing, you yourself have not failed. We haven't then internalized the failure and say, I am not good enough. I am a failure because I haven't made a success of this business. If we can rather de-link it and say that I just failed at that business, or I just failed at that time, or that attempt to market the business, or that product, it makes a huge difference. And it's a very subtle distinction, but it makes a huge difference in how we can present ourselves to the world, how our ability to take risks changes when our worthiness is not linked to whether that risk is successful or fails, if I can really simplify it like that. So yes, I still have a lot of questions about how it is that we are taught to construct our sense of worth that leads us to have such a strong apprehension for failure, especially in my home country, South Africa. How is it that in America, as Donna pointed out, how is it that in America, angel investors will not invest in you unless you have failed before? They want to know that you have the capacity to learn and grow, and that you have attempted, you've got that drive to learn and attempt to try things. Whereas in South Africa, if you have failed, you are written off. You're pushed aside and you are not seen or celebrated in any way. So Risk and Rise, that's what we're doing. We are celebrating failure, right? And we are doing it intentionally because I'm trying to help you unpack the layers behind in our conditioning, in our upbringing, in our culture that hold us back from being able to contribute and make a difference in this world, and specifically, obviously, through businesses, because we need more businesses to create more jobs so that more people can add their value to the world and look after themselves. We're looking out to develop our risk fitness. And one of the key foundations to that is our sense of worth. So I will be sharing some wonderful guests in the weeks to come. I'm busy setting up all the interviews and recordings to come and share with you. And some of them are going to be specifically around these deep issues. We are really going to get into to look at what is it in our mindset, in our conditioning, in the way we see failure, that we can start to shift it, start to grab on those more useful ideas like, I am not my failure. My failure is just an expression of an undeveloped skill, for example, or a learning opportunity. Those things that we hear people say, but we find difficult to grasp. I'm hoping that through this journey on Risk and Rise, we will be grasping what it is that is difficult and learning how to shift it, how to change it. No way. Please keep in touch. Share the show. We need to get it in front of more people. We are still looking for the One Matchstick startup. To have a look at onematchstick.co.za if you want to know more details. Perhaps you are a person who's ready to take that risk and start your business, and you need a venue, an office to do that from. You could just become the One Matchstick startup that gets access to 6 months office space at the Race Corp facilities. So go to onematchstick.co.za to find out how to apply. And do let me know what you think of this conversation, of this idea. Like, do you think that your sense of worth, like this deeply unconscious process that is part of us as being human, that there are different ways we can construct it, and that delinking our worth from our doing, from our achievement, is a possible way that we can overcome the fear of failure. Looking forward to hearing from you. You can email me at hello@riskandrise.co.za, or find me on any of my socials. Enjoy thinking about this idea, and let's risk and rise together.
Thank you for joining me on Risk and Rise, where we face fears, conquer challenges, and rise above adversity to achieve our dreams. Find out more at riskandrise.co.za.